So, Sarah Kenny, thank you so much for finding the time to speak with me today. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest and as a guest for my Making Waves section of the Defending Blue newsletter. You are the CEO of BMT, a really good naval architect firm that I actually love going to as my first port of call, actually, when I write articles about defense. I really think you have an amazing team and there's a wealth of knowledge there. And well, my first question to you was, what first drew you to the maritime world?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you. I agree with your comments about the amazing people we have at BMT, and that's why I chose to work for BMT. But if I rewind all the way back to the beginning of my career, well, no, if I rewind all the way back to being at school, actually, I was always driven to wanting to make a difference and do something environmental. And interestingly, it was not a maritime thing originally. When I grew up, the big environmental news in the media was the hole in the ozone layer. And I was inspired actually to see how public action could be galvanized to make a difference on a global issue. And it was many times, particularly with routes to net zero and the impacts of climate change, I think it's very easy for people to feel that it's such an enormous existential issue that how can any one individual ever make a difference? When I was a child growing up, I saw firsthand how society and industry and governments could pull together and genuinely make a difference. And so I guess that sort of drove a passion in me to recognize that we could make a difference as individuals, as organizations, and to want to get out there and do that. Now, I grew up near the sea, and although I don't come from a family of mariners, being near the sea has always been a fascination for me, understanding the way the ocean works, the importance of the ocean, to our climate, to our food chain, to the air that we breathe. I mean, it's often misunderstood. The ocean can be kind of out of sight and out of mind. But it has a profound impact on everything that we do as human beings and everything that lives on Earth. So being involved in ocean science and being involved in the science of anything that floats on or operates under the sea and the ecosystems that the ocean supports has been a passion of mine ever since I was really a teenager. And it's been a golden thread throughout my career, actually, that I've kept that interest and worked in marine and maritime science roles essentially throughout my career, culminating in being the chief executive of BMT, which has such a strong multinational maritime heritage. But more importantly than that is making a real positive difference for our customers, for society, for the environment, and mostly for our oceans. So it's a privilege to lead BMT. It feels like the right place for someone like me to have ended up.
Absolutely. It really does so. So just out of curiosity, are you a naval architect as well, or is your background quite different? No.
No. So I'm a marine environmental scientist.
Oh, right.
That was actually where I started my career and ended up marine engineering kind of by accident, really. But because I think ultimately the blend of understanding the science of climate change, the science of the way that there's such a close relationship, I suppose, between science and engineering. People can be quite precious about it, but actually, to me, engineering is the practical application of the science. If you understand the science, you can be a great engineer, and vice versa. You can make a bigger difference more quickly if you combine the two. So I'm the scientist, but working alongside engineers is the way you make things happen.
Yes, and I like that. I had never thought of it that way, but it absolutely makes sense in my head as well. So taking all this and thinking about it, what excites you the most about BMT? If there's one thing that you could pick that really is what excites you the most.
It's a really easy word to say, but there's a lot underneath it, and I think it's the spirit of innovation. And why does it matter? Because problem solving, innovating is the fastest way to solve problems. And when I say innovation, I mean everything from changing the way that you think about, collaborating and recognizing that no one has a monopoly on good ideas, and that actually many ideas often give you a solution that's greater than the sum of those individual parts. When you pull things together, when you work with partners who you weren't necessarily expecting to work with, who come from maybe different sectors or different backgrounds, but they can bring a different perspective and a solution that's worked for them that you can then make work for you. So collaboration, innovation, open-mindedness about technology, about the impact you can have. I suppose innovation is so important to me, and it's very much at the heart of the ethos of BMT, I'm proud to say. So not only do we directly invest money in innovation projects, so we've got, you know, sort of like flagship projects, if you like, whether it's investing in new hydrogen designs, new crew transfer vessels for the offshore energy industry, looking at deploying up to 1,000 autonomous vehicles off the coast of Australia to do environmental survey work. You know, these things really matter to us, but not because we're a bunch of anorak wearing scientists who just fancy doing the science. It's because we can see how they're a route to change, to positive and enduring change. And every single one of the examples I've just given you involve collaboration. So it's not BMT doing it on its own, it's BMT reaching out and working with other people who are like-minded, have similar interests, but also beliefs, recognizing that we can achieve something better and faster through collaboration than we ever can on our own.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of collaboration and the importance of working all together, as you know, the newsletter is about sustainability and about trying to bridge sustainability and navies. So I was wondering, you know, when I say to people bridging sustainability and navies, they look at me like, what, are you crazy? Who cares about this? Navies don't care about this. And I find myself having to explain what sustainability, how I understand it. So I was wondering, how do you understand it at BMT? What does it mean for you, sustainability?
So it would sound a little bit trite to say that sustainability is at the heart of BMT, but it genuinely is. And it's interesting you talk about your definition of sustainability, because for me, it's about having targets for our emissions, being responsible and accountable for the impact that each of us and as a collective BMT has on the environment. And, you know, we're very proud that we're on track to hit our net zero targets and our SBTI targets. And, you know, we know that we will achieve a reduction in all of our scope emissions by 65% by 2030. We're really proud of that. We're really proud of that. But for me, sustainability is about something it's about much more than that. Sustainability isn't something you tack onto the side of the business and say, oh, well, we've ticked the box, we've hit the target, you know, forget it. This is actually about, for every project that we're working on, for every bid that we write, for every customer engagement, we're sitting back and thinking, how can we make what we're doing better in order to make it last longer? You know, use better materials that have less environmental impact, but also deliver enhanced performance. You know, if you've got let's take a ship for an example, and made me laugh when you said that navies and sustainability don't go together. When I left being an environmental scientist and started working for the Navy in the UK, I used to design environmental systems for warships. That was what I did. Why? Not because they all wanted to be very green, but because they recognised that it would give them operational independence and freedom of manoeuvre, and that it would save them money, and that it would save people working on board the ships the drudgery of having to be involved in mundane tasks such as waste management or, you know, plugging in sewage pipes and those sorts of things. So, you know, actually, when we talk about sustainability, people often get their heads in the space of this is about box ticking and environmental compliance. That is a tiny part of sustainability. Sustainability is about a mindset change of how can we actually use the principles of sustainability to make ourselves better than we are today. And that is what's at the heart of BMT's strategy and our philosophy. How can we make things better, cleaner, cheaper, faster, safer? And to me, that's sustainability. And why anyone would think that that wasn't something that they'd want a piece of is beyond me. And we see it actually with our defence customers are not just asking for, but now demanding that we look at sustainability as a really important part of our marine designs, for example, or if we're sustaining marine platforms. So there is a growing recognition of its importance, and I'd like to see that become more than just bolting it on the side and sort of saying, well, I'd like you to design me one of them, and by the way, can you also do the sustainability stuff? I'd like that to be at the heart of the thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just an add-on on a ship, or as you said, on a policy or something like this. And we love buzzwords in every single industry. Defense is no exception. We're talking a lot about dual-use technologies at the moment. Do they play a significant role in sustainability as well?
Yes, and I think oftentimes when we think about dual use, we think, certainly in the environment I come from, we think military into civilian, but actually, given the pace and investment in consumer electronics, for example, it's the other way around, and it has been for quite some time. So when I started my career 20 something years ago, it was absolutely the case that defence technology, we would constantly be looking to spin it out, and dual use meant starts in military, let's see if we can commercialize it. These days we very rarely think that, unless we're really in a very where security in particular is a really big deal. These days it's the other way around. So having that bit, like my comment earlier about collaboration, looking to other industries from other sectors and saying what's going on there that we can pull in here that's going to help to accelerate progress, but also tick the box on the sustainability. We're looking at environmental technologies, that's an obvious one. Militaries have traditionally just borrowed them from the civil sector. Why would you do anything else, right? But increasingly, if you think about in more broad terms about sustainability, if you've got floating assets at sea and you can put fewer people on them, then you massively reduce the environmental impact. So that gets you into how do you automate? Can you deliver greater levels of autonomy at sea in order to take humans out of the loop, in order to deliver the sustainability argument? Where do you get the digital underpin to do that from the commercial electronics environment? So should we be looking more and more at dual use? Absolutely. We're going to have to, actually, because we aren't going to be able to go fast enough if all we do is look purely at defence and go, well, it can only come from here. That's just going to hamper our progress. We haven't got time.
Yeah, I think that's a story for the past now, having to focus on defense, definitely. And I'm recognizing what you're saying, also how you started our conversation talking about BMT being across as well, defense and commercial. And I think these visions that you're talking about, the missions that you're talking about, are what contributes to, if I understand this correctly, the great success that you had in 2024. If I recall correctly, you had a 10% increased revenue. Is that right?
Yes, we did. Yeah, and also profitability as well. So yeah, 2024 was a fantastic year for us, and it's great because we're in our 40th year of BMT, which is
happy birthday.
Thank you so much. And it's an honour and a privilege actually to lead an organisation that's got such a strong heritage for everything from the Turbinia ship that completely blew the doors off the Royal Navy's attitude towards the transition from sail to steam, and yeah, there's just a massive list of innovations that came from BMT, and of course, my job is to make sure that carries on. And the best way to do that actually is not only to hire great people and look after them well, but to have financial stability and actually sustainability. So financial success is great on paper, and it's a nice thing to put in an annual report, but it's what it means that's important, and it's the ability to channel that investment back into the business, into the innovation agenda, into our work with communities and education, into the training and development of our people, our apprentices and our graduates. And to me, that's it's all very virtuous, really. So being profitable earns us the right to go and do the things that we want to do and have the impact that we want to have with our people, with our customer community, and out in the communities that we work with as well. So it was a great year, very proud of it, very proud of our people for pulling together to make it happen, and actually really excited about the things that it's offered us the ability to go and do as a result of the good financial performance.
And that was going to be my next question. In fact, how will this going to translate into, as we were talking about sustainability, these innovations? Do you already have a few glimpses of the future you can tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, we're really heavily investing at the moment in new concepts, both for defence, for ship designs for defence, but also greener ferries. Looking at short sea shipping, which will have much more prominence, we believe, in the coming years. But in doing that in a green way and an efficient way. So that's going on. We're also really heavily invested in autonomy and autonomous systems, so those are the key themes I think you'll see coming out over the next couple of years from BMT.
Very much looking forward to that. And so we're talking a little bit about looking back. As you said, BMT is 40 years old, but you have been in this role for 7 years now. And I hate to be the one who points it out, but I have to. I like to as well. You're in a position that not many women have been in our field, if you consider that you're also part of the defense world. So these past 7 years, has that what does that mean in terms of how you see leadership? Has that taught you anything different from whether if it had been a man, anything?
But it's very difficult to say what would be different if I'd been a man. I guess what my reflections would be that all of us have. So this starts from the principle I have, which is that diverse organisations make better decisions. They do it more quickly. They have more impact. So diversity really matters. And you don't achieve diversity unless you have an environment that supports it, which is actually where people talk about inclusion and feeling like you're welcome and that your views matter and that you can give your best every day without remotely worrying about who you are. You can just bring yourself to work and that's it, and your contribution is absolutely valued no matter who you are. And that really, really, really matters to me. It's fundamental to who I am and the organisation that I run today. But I recognise that, we have a demographic that's born out of our education system, the past, the sort of accepted industry norms, the way that the marine and maritime sector and also the defence sector presents itself into the market, which can quite often switch off not just women, but all sorts of other people from other sorts of backgrounds. And my mission, if you like, is to use the fact that I'm a female CEO in a male-dominated world, but to use that for good, really, to basically say, look, I can get here, so it's okay. You can too. And in every way I can, not just with BMT, but in all of the other organisations that I work alongside and support, to be an advocate for diversity and inclusion, and to stand up for the things that really matter and make our organisations, our sector, our industries the best place to attract the most diverse talent. There's a lot to do, a huge amount to do. But back to my previous comment about not being too small to make a difference. All of us can. We just need to try.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not just, as you said, you made it here and so it is doable, but it's also like you stayed 7 years, which proves very much that there is this culture at BMT that you have also managed to implement this culture. Well, to maintain this culture, and it's very conducive to that as well. Now, the last two questions I wanted to ask you, not necessarily like a fire round, but almost, you know, if you could change something tomorrow, one thing, what would it be?
That's a big what, everywhere in the whole world.
Anything that keeps you awake at night.
Yeah, well, it'll probably be climate change, actually. It's I mean, crikey, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment, and every day I look at the news in the morning when I wake up, and I'm sort of almost holding the phone over there, not wanting to look. But kind of a lot of this stuff's quite short term, whereas climatic change and the impacts of getting this wrong are really are existential. It's if the greatest existential threat that faces us is climate change. So if I could change that, that's what I'd change.
Yeah, I think that would be a great start. Absolutely. And the last question is, you know, it would be, as you said, we wake up every morning with like really sad news or worrying news. So let's talk about hope. Is there something that does give you hope?
Yeah, I mean, and I wake up to that every day too, interestingly, which is the amazing passion and care of the people that I work with. It's the reason I love BMT is because it's full of people who care as much, if not more, than I do about making a difference. Whether it's for the Navy or for their ferry customer or for an aquaculture project or an offshore energy project, whatever it is, my people inspire me, and that willingness to carry on and make a difference is inspiring, and it gives you hope, because it's not confined to us. There's plenty of other people who've got that, but to get up to that in the morning is a real privilege.